Instagram also.
Cool.
All right. There we go. All right, perfect. We are live on both platforms.
Action.
Awesome. Action. Let's see here. Let me before we go, let's go to live here. Jump in. There we go. One of these days, once we make it big, Brenan, we're gonna have to get some production assistance here.
I know, right?
welcome to the Mixed Surfaces. I'm trying to get my feed going here. Let's see here. All right, so yeah, it's going.
People get to see how the sausage is made right here. Aria's one-man production team. I just show up with an iPad and hope I don't say anything stupid. So it's about all I can do.
Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Welcome, Mixed Surfaces listeners. We have a fantastic and special guest, Brenan Wertz. You guys probably know. By the way, Brenan, how am I saying your last name correctly? I feel like we've talked a few times. I've never.
Yeah.
Wertz,
Yeah, Brenan Wertz is how it's pronounced here. If you're in the German-speaking parts of the world, then it's Wertz. But yeah,
that's right.
Usually it's Wertz.
So we have Brenan. Brenan is last year 2024 U.S. Gravel National Champion. Fast guy. So there's two fast guys on this podcast. It's definitely not Graham. It's Brenan and myself. But Brenan is an accomplished rider, racer, gravel pro. He does it all. So we're gonna pick his brain and get to the bottom of his racing tactics and training, nutrition, sitting tires. We were just chatting about that a little bit ago. So we're gonna cover a whole lot of stuff. Brennan's a massively interesting person. So we thank you for your time getting on the podcast here. I know we've been trying to make this work for a while, but it's prime rest season. So thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's see here. People in the comments here. Let me. Graham, I'll let you take it away.
Let's kick it off. So good intro, Aria. I mean, maybe not the best, but it works. No, I'm kidding. So Brenan, you are kind of new, not new, but newer to the sport of gravel. You didn't grow up riding bikes and racing bikes, right? Maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about your history, how you came to be where you are.
Yeah. I grew up doing a little bit of mountain biking, but it was never racing, never serious. It was always just sort of an after school thing with some friends and super, super casual. And then, I was rowing all through high school and college. So that took the majority of my focus. I did a little bit of cycling as cross training throughout, but it wasn't really until 2019 when I started to really get serious about cycling and bike racing and quickly got hooked. And then, from there it was very much, the rest was history. I just fell in love with it really quickly and did a couple years racing on the road, and then the pandemic hit, and that made everything more difficult. But right before the pandemic hit, I had built up a gravel bike. I was working in a bike shop, and with the sort of pandemic lockdowns and restrictions that were in place, a lot of the open space near where I live was open still, and we could still recreate outdoors, especially by bike. And so I had just a little bit more time on my hands. I was temporarily laid off from my job, and so I just spent a lot of time on the gravel bike exploring my backyard and really just fell in love with it quickly. It was super, super fun, and the style of riding, the adventure element of it, just sort of everything about it was really attractive and really hooked me from the beginning. And then coming out of the pandemic, the first races locally that popped up were some of the gravel races, and I just did a couple of those and loved the racing side of it. And then from there it just snowballed. There's more gravel, more races. The scene sort of was developing and unfolding around me, and I feel like I got in it at a really interesting and perfect time, and have it's been my full focus ever since then, back in 2021.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a story of so many people, maybe not to your extent, but COVID and the lockdown. I mean, I think it pushed so many people towards bikes. We saw bike sales going crazy during that time. And then it's fun to see how people have developed a passion for it from there. So, rowing, you were not just a rower. You were a U23 world champion. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
So you have not only seen the Stars and Stripes. Do they have a rainbow jersey for rowers? Is that a thing?
Unfortunately, they do not. There's like
We need to get you one.
The only jersey that they have that's sort of close to that is the World Cup leader. So like the series overall leader will have neon yellow sleeves that they wear underneath their kind of singlet. But no, world champion was never really like, there was no cool rainbow jersey that you got to wear the following year.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a little bit of a shame. That's definitely something in cycling.
I know, right? I mean, like, what a cool way to do it. Well, so you clearly have the physiology, built for endurance sports, right? I mean, and you crafted that engine with rowing like through your life. So what was the moment that you knew that you had what it took to make it in cycling, or that it was something that you really wanted to go for? Was it, the first ride you went out and you smashed all the Masters guys on their group ride, or did you tell me that story? How did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would say just in some ways I still question that, or I still wonder that. Like, I mean, I've won some big races now and I've had a really awesome time doing it and have really enjoyed my experience up until this point. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I ever had like a moment where it was clear to me that I can do it. I just sort of felt like I'm kind of the person or the personality who likes to just go all in to whatever it is that I'm focused on. And when I made the switch from rowing to cycling, I didn't really know how to get there or where I was necessarily going, but I just knew I wanted to give it everything I could. And I've just kind of had that mentality the whole time, like just fully focus on it, make the most of the opportunity. And then also just try to have the most fun along the way. I think that's been kind of my guiding principle throughout all of this, is what can I do that's the most fun and enables me to ride my bike the most.
Sure.
And so back in the early days, it was working at a bike shop, and that enabled me to have a ton of fun, learn some new skills, and ride my bike a lot. And then that kind of transitioned, and then I had the opportunity to race full time back in 2022, and it seemed like that was an even better way to ride my bike a lot and have fun, and just kind of continued building off of that from there.
Nice. And then you started winning stuff.
Which of course is addicting too. That also adds to the fun factor. Gives you something more to chase.
Yeah, right. I kind of want to touch, since this just happened last weekend, I want to kind of go over Bravo Nationals and how that shook up. Because last year, like, you had one of the most entertaining finishes. How you were able to come back on those slicks and just attacking those guys. How was this year? How did things shake out?
It was cool. It was fun. It was a new course, so I think everyone was a little bit curious just how the new course would race and how it would play out. I went and did some recon of the new course the week after Gravel Worlds in Nebraska, and I would say already from my first ride, I was a little bit taken aback. Like, oh man, this is going to be a hard race. Like, these climbs are no joke. It's steep. When I was there the first time, it was really dry too, so there was very limited traction on the climbs. And I can climb and I can do these shorter punchy climbs, but when it's over 8%, like these climbs often got above 10%, that's definitely where I start to struggle. I mean, I am a bigger guy, and I've got definitely more weight to carry up the climb than many or all of my competitors, I would say. Yeah. So I knew that I would have to be a bit defensive in that regard in certain areas of the course where it was more climb heavy. I'd have to really take it on in certain sections and really leverage the parts that suited me better. And then, yeah, also, of course, like in any race, you just have to sort of see how it unfolds around you. And I was a little bit worried about an early break going and getting a big gap on the field, and that's exactly what happened. And with the way that these races are playing out right now and just sort of the lack of control, there was like a fairly negative dynamic in the group where no one really wanted to take on the chase and drag the rest of the peloton around. And the group was pretty big and super strong, so we were having trouble shedding guys. So that definitely made for an interesting dynamic. But I would say I was super proud of how I raced. I definitely like really took the race on in the middle section and kind of threw everything I had at it. And that was my plan going into it, like right around 70K into the race, just really go all in to try to either attack off the front or bridge to the front. And that was definitely when the race kind of started to kick off. And I really enjoyed that. I felt like I was able to animate the race, but I knew that if it came down to a group of us still going into those last two climbs, I'd be definitely more on the back foot. And so that's kind of ultimately what happened. I got dropped on the second to last climb, tried to chase back in between with Braden and Pete. Braden was able to make an insane bridge through this one, really kind of one of the more technical sections of the course on this really fast descent. He basically just teleported across the gap back to the front, and I ended up working with Pete on the way back to the finish, and we were kind of just off the back of that front group at the very front of the race where it played out. But of course, I definitely really wanted to win, but Braden, he's a really good friend of mine. We trained together all winter long. We're neighbors here in NorCal. So
Cool.
Of all the other racers to hand the jersey over to, he was definitely my top pick, and I'm super proud of him and super stoked to see him get that big win. I know a lot of us have known he's been.
So let me ask you this. And I've watched a few videos of you, in the front group, and it's like people, they see you there. As soon as you attack, or if like they let a gap open, as soon as Brenan tries to close the gap, everybody goes. How do you deal with that? I feel like that would be incredibly frustrating, right? Where you're a Mac rider, like talk to me how you deal with it, because I feel like you are strong, your FTP is crazy, but if playing cat and mouse against like 10 other riders, I mean,
yeah,
it's going to tire you out. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I love about bike racing is at that point it's a little bit more of a mental game, or there's like almost an element of game theory involved where you have to be smart and tactical and very strategic about how you attack, where on the course you are. You want to do it in places where you have the upper hand, and also maybe where there's a point where there's less draft effect. Like I said earlier, I'm a pretty massive guy. I'm 6'5", so I give off a really big draft. So the people sitting behind me, they're saving a lot of energy. So I have to really make sure that I can break that elastic and get ahead of them enough so that they're not drafting off me. So that's where I'll try to use like a crosswind section or maybe a rougher section where it's more about raw power and less about drafting.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Timing is kind of often a big part of it.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, and we've talked a little bit about the podcast, but I feel like especially, with the Lifetime Grand Prix, like that's got the best coverage. So those are the races that a lot of us watch. But the Group 2 dynamics that have started to really become, I just feel like they've become so prevalent in the major gravel races where, without, like, it begs the question, like, should there be teams or should there not be teams? Because with teams, like a lot of Group 2 dynamics are gone away. Like if you got a teammate that's dedicated to working for you, but when everybody's out there either as a privateer or just as an individual racer, it feels like the move is made on these big long races, and no one really wants to get behind and work together because they're worried about someone like you that's going to be able to diesel away, or they're worried about someone who has a pop. I just kind of like to, with Aria's question and with that, like what are your thoughts? Like, I mean, how does gravel fix? I wouldn't say it's a problem because like you said, it's bike racing and it's about making the right moves at the right times. But how do we fix that? Because I don't know exactly what the right answer is, but I worry that it's going to kill the viewership of the sport because it'll be one move and then there's no coming back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the team structures are inevitable. I think it's really just up around the next corner. I think that's then going to be the next big thing. And I think it's exciting because it totally changes the rhetoric and narrative around racing, and also the tactical game. The storyline is totally different. It just makes the racing far more interesting. And I think that's just like the next step in gravel's development and growth. And I think, 2 years ago, it would have maybe been frowned upon. It would have rubbed people the wrong way depending on how it was done. But I think now everybody sees that the opportunity is there, and there's lots of rumors going around. Like this is definitely the next frontier, and it's gonna happen. I think it's just a matter of time. It's already happening in Europe, and I think one of the things that I've done more than many of my American colleagues and counterparts is go over and do some of these UCI races and spend a little bit more time in Europe checking out that racing scene. And there have been teams over there for at least 2 years already now. So it's not
Wow.
it's not a foreign concept. I mean, there have been team infrastructures and tactics in bike racing since the beginning of bike racing. It's
Right.
not exactly
Yeah.
rocket science. And I think now that the fields are progressing to the point where the speed is so high, and we've seen all these different races that have been won by these long range breakaway attacks where everybody in the main bunch just kind of sits up and looks at each other. I think that opportunity is just too big now, and people are realizing that it's a missed opportunity to have those races play out like
Yep.
that. I think for the fans and for gravel at large, it'll take maybe a slight bit of adjustment in the beginning, but I think it'll just in the long run create a far more interesting, dynamic racing environment, and the storylines will be more interesting. The content will be more interesting. I think it'll just help the sport continue to grow.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with you. I mean, I think spirit of gravel aside, like it will make the races more interesting because I mean, it's going to become infinitely more tactical than road racing now is because the idea of like, you think about like a lead out and you drop the wheel at reverse lead out, like doing that into a technical section. I mean, you could put your leader out front, give them a gap. And if you ride a little negatively through the single track, like you could easily establish some race dynamics there. So I think it's refreshing to hear that because I don't know if all of the top riders feel that way, but I do hope. I've heard some rumors within Lifetime that there's some things changing, and I hope that's where they're going to be moving towards because I think it'll be interesting. So you brought up a good point in a topic I wanted to explore a little further. You, especially last year, had a pretty heavy calendar with the UCI series, doing a lot of races over in Europe. This year, not so much, and so I maybe just wanted you to touch a little bit on. You talked a little bit about, but the experience racing over in Europe, what the gravel scene looks like there, and how you see. And what you took from that, how it's helped you here, and just maybe a little bit about your experience over there.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I did back in 2016 while I was still rowing and still in college. I went to central Germany and I did an internship in the countryside near Frankfurt, and I brought a hardtail with me that summer. I wasn't racing or anything. It was just a way to stay in shape in between rowing seasons because where I was, there was no rowing clubs or bodies of water. And I just rode the hardtail all through these forests, and there's this big forest kind of near where I was living, kind of in this sort of this region where the Eschborn Frankfurt road race goes, kind of just outside of Frankfurt in the Taunus Mountains. And it just blew my mind. I mean, it was beautiful, these beautiful forest roads, like endless gravel. And so I would just go after work every day and just rip around in the woods and ride kind of a combination of single track and these forest roads through this big wide open forest, and then I also spent a bunch of time bike packing, did some bike packing on gravel and single track through the Black Forest, and just had an amazing experience. And that really opened my eyes to like the terrain over there is insane. Like there's so much good riding. And so at that time, like the internship was sort of bike industry adjacent, and so I was reading a lot of bike industry media and was hearing about, there's this guy Ted and this race called Dirty Kanza, and there's like this gravel thing was like starting to pick up momentum, or at least like you started to kind of hear a little bit about it. And so I don't know, I already back then started to put two and two together a little bit. Like there's this whole scene over here, or like not scene, but there's all this terrain over here that's just awesome to ride, but the hardtail is a little bit overkill for it.
Yeah.
And so that was when I started to think like, I mean, we have this stuff here back home that I ride on the hardtail that's also kind of like not really suited to that bike, but so I knew like terrain-wise already back then, like I could see this being a thing, and so I sort of just felt like it was almost a little bit of a responsibility just to sort of see how the scene over in Europe was developing. Like I'm I feel personally rather invested in just the sport at large, and I think there has been a little bit of an attitude that like, oh, there's only gravel races in the U.S. or it's the
Right.
American sport and it's the American thing, and I think that's pretty short-sighted because there are awesome races in Europe. There's an awesome scene, an awesome community, and it has many of the things that we love about gravel over here, but it also has like a different flavor and kind of a different take on some of the races. And yeah, I just really enjoyed my experience over there. I met a lot of really cool people. Did some riding that just absolutely blew my mind. Like I did this gravel race in Switzerland in the Alps that was just absolutely stunning. So yeah, I had a blast. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to see all the terrain over there and ride my bike in some really cool places and meet a lot of really, really cool people.
Nice. Why? So like last year, you pursued that calendar pretty heavily. Like any reason you didn't do it this year? Obviously, the team switched to Scott. Like, were they wanting you to focus a little bit more domestically, or why the switch?
No, I just wanted to take like this year having the opportunity to wear the Stars and Stripes jersey. I just felt the impact of that would be the greatest here in the States, and
Sure.
people would be the most excited to see that. And I wanted to really rep that here. And I also knew that. Like originally when the calendar was announced, the Worlds were going to be in Nice this year, and I had sort of seen or heard some talk about what that course was going to look like, and it really wasn't going to suit me much.
Yeah.
So I just, between having the jersey and seeing what that course looked like, I just sort of decided early on, like it's not really worth trying to prepare for that. I'm going to try to shift my calendar and have different goals this year, and kind of build my year around the big one-day gravel races in the U.S. And so that was just kind of the way that I approached it this year.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think I was really impressed with the amount of racing that you did last year. I mean, that was a lot of travel. That was a lot of racing. Yeah. It seems like you backed your calendar off a little bit and gone for some more strategic targets. Coming home with the win to Steamboat is always super, super cool and super fun. So you think you'll do the same thing next year or
Yeah, I think so. I really enjoyed this year, and I think one of the things that I've learned now over the years of doing this is I can be more successful when I narrow my focus and when I focus on the races that suit me best. And I think that's just what I did this year. And I didn't race nearly as much as I did in the years past, but it gave me more time to really prepare for the key races that I really cared about. Steamboat being kind of the number one priority in that. Like that was a race that I've really always wanted to win, and my main goal for this year was to win one of the big U.S. races in the Stars and Stripes jersey. So it gave me the space to really focus on that and kind of do what I needed to make sure that I was prepared for those key targets, and then save a little bit of energy and not have as much travel stress and kind of all the back and forth that I'd had in years past.
Cool. No, I mean, I think
the Steamboat race format. What did you think about that?
I really liked it. I mean, I think it's definitely, in my eyes, it was undeniable that it was missing a little bit of the charm of the original event. I've been going to Steamboat since 2021, and it's definitely my favorite race on the calendar. It's a super nice place to go. I love the riding there. But it was definitely a different vibe out in Hayden. I think the race lacked a little bit of that original charm. And I do also think, like, for me personally, from a performance standpoint and from a racing perspective, that course did really suit me well. Like, it could not have been much better for me. It was still plenty hard, still a solid amount of climbing and some really like good punchy kickers in the middle of the lap, but also a lot of that where, I mean, I think probably from a race power file, it was probably one of the lowest power, like average powers I've ever had in a race, because I was just able to ride so efficiently on that terrain and save so much energy. So as far as just like racing and performing, I really, really liked the course, and I really, really benefited from having neutral aid stations and being able to take bottles and not have to play the whole like dehydration game. So I really do like these circuit format races. I think that's the future. And as much as I love the sort of idea of these big, adventurous, epic loops, I think some of the logistical and safety challenges that they provide or that you have to deal with in those types of races kind of outweigh that benefit of having this super cool big loop. So especially for the pro race, I think having these tighter circuit format races with better safety control, rolling enclosure, these types of things, I much prefer that. I think safety should always be the number one priority, and I think you can prioritize that much better on that type of course. So I'm all for the circuit format.
Yeah, no, I was curious about that. Let's see here. All right, Graham, if you want to have something, I'm responding to Instagram people.
Well, you said it was the lowest power that you averaged. Just so the listeners can have some reference, what do you remember what your average power was for that race?
Honestly, I have no idea what the average was. The only number that I can remember is I remember my coach telling me afterwards that I did over 1,000 watts for over 30 seconds. Which I didn't even think I could do that.
Yeah.
But that was like the winning attack when I went over the top of the climb and was able to get away from Keegan and Alexi.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that much power, who's going to be able to because I mean, like a lot of those guys especially I feel like the people in the Lifetime Grand Prix that usually are with you in that front on the pointy end of the race. Most of them are lighter riders. I feel like when you have to put down a lot of power, I've seen that it looks like not very many people can go with you if it's if the course is within your abilities. Like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that your power profile would let you do that, because I would have pegged you more as a big diesel TT specialist, almost big FTP, big endurance. So impressive to see that you got the top end spike.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I surprised myself a little bit with that. If you had asked me before, do you think you could do that for 30 seconds? I would have told you absolutely not. But I will say I have that kind of my best numbers always come in the races. I can just always I can always push that a little bit harder when I'm racing, and I'm able to really get in the zone, and I often find myself kind of surprising myself with looking at the files afterwards in a race.
Well, I kind of wonder if that isn't a bit of your rowing background, though, because my wife was a rower, my sister was a rower. I've never seen people turn themselves inside out more than a 8-man crew, because if you give up, it's everyone else has to meet your level. And so I wonder if that grit that you have doesn't come a little bit from that rowing background, because you can go super deep when it comes time to it. So that's cool. So the ability to go deep, I nerd out on nutrition. I like to hear about training and nutrition and things like that. So you as a bigger rider probably have to think about nutrition maybe more than anybody else in your races. At baseline, you're burning more calories. When you put out these large power numbers, you got to find a way to fuel it. So talk to me a little bit about what your strategy is on a race day. Are you talking 100 grams, 150 grams? I know some people are pushing it. How do you keep yourself fueled up to where you can push these big power numbers?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge is always just the hydration, getting enough fluid to be able to keep kind of consistently putting the fuel in. I definitely struggle to keep taking on fuel when I'm dehydrated. So that hydration piece is usually the thing that's the most challenging and also the most crucial, I'd say. That's where I really do like these races where we have normal aid stations more frequently, where you can just take bottle hand ups, kind of more like a normal road race.
Sure.
Because it enables me to focus much more on the actual bike race and not on playing these kind of tactical dehydration games. I just really think that that's one, unsafe, and two, not really what the sport should be about.
Agreed.
But yeah, I normally am in the sort of when it's really going well and I'm kind of feeling really good and I'm able to hit the hydration, I'm sort of in that 140, 150 range pretty comfortably. And that's kind of a combination of all sorts of different things, but predominantly Osmo Power Fuel and their hydration. So kind of they have an interesting product where it's they have their fuel separately from their hydration, and so you can kind of mix and match your own ratios, and so I'll change that up depending on the temperature, the duration, what sort of feed zone setup we have. They have caffeinated fuel and uncaffeinated, so I'll kind of switch between those two depending on where we are in the race. But yeah, usually, yeah, there you go. That's right there. Yeah, the blackberry, that purple one is my favorite. That's my
blackberry.
This guy right here.
Yeah. But usually in like a liter bottle, I'll mix in like 3 or 4 scoops of the hydration, so that purple stuff, and then another like 3 or 4 scoops of the fuel, and then
So they do it
get me to where I like on like sort of a temperate day.
Now, do you typically put those in the same bottle, or do you do 2 different bottles? How does that work?
I mix it all together in the same bottle. So basically, like the fuel is flavorless, so you can kind of adjust that to taste, and basically it just alters how sweet it is, but it doesn't have a flavor. And then the hydration has the flavor and the electrolytes, and a smaller amount of carbs. It has some carbs, but not a ton. And so I'll kind of, if it's super hot, I'll bring down that fuel amount, and I'll try to get more total fluid, but I'll have a lower ratio of fuel to water. So that's kind of the biggest consideration is just temperature. And so the hotter the temperature, the less fuel per liter I'll do, but try to take on more liters of fluid so I get to the same.
So does that make it to where you don't need gels and stuff? Or do you
I usually use some gels and chews as well, but I'm able to lean pretty heavily on this on the Osmo.
Yeah,
I'm getting definitely the bulk of my carbs from that.
Yeah, I struggle with. I do maple syrup in my bottles, so I've been doing a quarter cup, but I think to do about 90 grams, you need almost half a cup of maple syrup, based on the internet numbers. But I struggle between, should I supplement those 90 grams with some gels, or I mean, depending on the rest, I don't know. You have any thoughts about that?
I just like getting sort of diverse sources of carbs. I mean, I'm sort of for the real fans are the ones who've been close to me since the very beginning. Like I don't remember what podcast it was, but I did some interview where I told someone a while ago about taking these like Amy's frozen burritos, and I kind of became slightly famous for that. Like people would joke about that, but those were great because I would just have like some solid food.
Sure.
Midway through the race, you put it. It's kind of disgusting, but you put it in your pocket in the beginning of the day.
It warms up. It's great.
A couple hours in, it's defrosted, and you can eat it, and it's like basically just beans and rice and a tortilla. So I do like to take stuff like that. I've done a lot of longer bike packing trips and stuff where you have to get creative and you have to eat that kind of stuff because if you're doing 4 days of 8-hour days back to back to back, you can only take so many gels with you in your bike packing bags and
palate fatigue. So even with like 100, say you're doing 150 grams of carbs an hour, that's like what? Like that, I feel like that equals out to 600. That's like 600 calories per hour. So over a 6-hour race, which a lot of your races are 6+ hours, you're only getting in like 3,600 calories, and you're out there burning. I mean, I'm gonna just guess like KJ is like probably 10,000, 9,000 kJs sometimes. Like, what is?
Yeah, on a race like Unbound for sure.
Yeah. Like, so like, are you pretty empty at the end of that? At the end of the race, and like, what's your recovery look like?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm pretty destroyed. I think a big part of it, a big thing that I've done this year is just really a lot of carb loading the days prior to the race. That's helped a lot with that, and then just trying to be very organized and sort of plan ahead and make sure that I have something that I can usually eat right away after the race, or take something like a shake or something. Yeah. Just to get something back in the system quickly after the race is over. Yeah. Especially when it's like you have a race again the next weekend. You have to quickly refocus.
Yeah. So I have a burning question for you. Okay, this might be unpopular, but what are your thoughts on, for example, we'll take the biggest beast in the room, Unbound, and the checkpoints, the aid stations, whatever. What do you think should be done? I feel like a lot of races are won or lost in the aid station nowadays, which is kind of ridiculous to think about. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think we should do? Should we neutralize that?
One of the races that I've done that I've always enjoyed the way that they approach the feed zones is gravel locos. I don't think their system would work at the scale of Unbound just because it would be impossible to police, but they have this kind of like 2-minute rule where everybody who comes in together is sort of forced to then leave together, and you have 2 minutes where you're allocated and forced to stop in the aid station. So it sort of neutralizes that moment in the race. And they've done that because it's just historically been crazy, crazy hot there. And so it's a bit of a safety concern. I'm definitely a fan of not having the feed zones and like a lack of fueling become a tactical advantage. I just think that there's far more interesting things that we can leverage in a bike race than who can come the closest to being dangerously dehydrated. And like, I don't know, heat stroke's a pretty serious thing. You don't want to really push that too far. So I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I have a super good answer or super, like, I don't know, better alternative, but I do feel like the way that those feed zones are set up currently, they're just so chaotic and so dangerous that it's you definitely kind of just go in with just sort of hoping that you can come out in one piece and you get through it cleanly, but it's not always the case.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been like Payson got hurt in there this year. Cole got hurt too in the feed zone. It's like, man, this is totally avoidable.
Who was it? Was it Cam Jones? Was it Cam Jones that hit the film crew? Who was it that hit the film crew? Who was that?
The guy that came in second in Leadville, Gaston, I think.
Oh, yes, that was at Leadville. I think they got a way to figure it out. I mean, on the other end though, like if we go back to the team piece, like I do think it would be kind of fun to see these F1 pit stops. If people had their designated spots, like for teams, then you've got who knows where it could go. I mean, not just fueling, but are we talking wheel swaps? Like, are we talking, they radio ahead and say, I need a tire change or something along those lines? Like, it could be really interesting. But yeah, the feed zones, like, I agree with you, Brenan. Like, I think cycling is such an eating contest as it is. But gravel brings so much nuance to the sport in the sense that even the strongest rider with the highest FTP won't always win, because you got to be able to handle your bike. You got to be able to like play the race tactically. And I think turning it into a war of attrition when it comes to nutrition is the wrong approach. It's just and I know you're a little biased because you're the biggest rider out there burning the most kilojoules, but like at the same time, like it's still, I want to see you out there with the ability to smash it for 1,000 watts at 30 seconds. I don't want to see you, bonk because you didn't get to eat enough. And I agree with you. I hope that they'll follow that route.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have a question there for you, Brenan, from John Smith. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm definitely a fan of my carbon gravel bike right now, but I think the most important thing is that you have a bike that you're excited to ride and that gets you out the door. I think the most important thing is riding, and I wouldn't get too caught up on a given piece of equipment or specific tire or this or that. Like, I think there is a lot of very specific equipment in the gravel space, and it's awesome. And for us pros, it really helps us in specific race scenarios, and there's all sorts of awesome developments. But at the end of the day, like I still firmly believe that the most important thing is getting out, just riding, and enjoying it and having fun. And if for you that means making some upgrades over time, and you see something shiny that you want to work towards and save up for, like, go right ahead, but don't let that get in the way of enjoying what you're riding currently and just getting out there and enjoying riding.
Yeah.
Well,
so John, when you go to your partner and talk about why you need this new bike, that's what you say. You say, it's not about the carbon, it's not about the price tag, it's about what gets me excited to ride the bike. And I know from experience that when you say that to your partner, they will without a doubt laugh at you, but you can still try it. So no.
Hopefully Yvonne's watching, Brenan, so she can hear your advice and let me get the next bike.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think, John, so maybe to build off of John's question a little bit, like I think you make a great point. It's the bike that you look at and you want to go ride. And I think that's really important. But say for someone who's got their first gravel bike and they're looking at buying their next gravel bike, like, what do you think the most important features on a modern day bike are right now, given, the gravel races that people are doing here in the US?
I think it depends certainly on where you live and your home terrain, like the gearing. I think that's always a really big one. Just making sure you have gearing that suits both your fitness level and then also your your fitness level, and then also just like your terrain and your desires with like what it is that you're trying to get out of the bike and get out of riding it. I think that's also the kind of the key things. I think tire clearance, that's always important, making sure that you can get a tire that, like, similar to the gearing, that your tires suit the terrain that you ride. Like if you live in Steamboat and you ride Steamboat gravel all the time, like you could probably get away with riding that on an all-road bike or a road bike on like 35s or 40 mil slicks. And so if that's where you live and that's the terrain you ride, you probably don't need some sort of crazy monster truck, huge, big, fat mountain bike tire gravel bike. But if you live somewhere that's super rugged and the terrain's really rough, then yeah, that's kind of more the setup you want. So I think it just depends a lot on where it is that you live. And that's where, like, a local bike shop is a huge asset, being able to go down to your local bike shop and talk to the people there and just see, like, yeah, where are you going to drive? What kind of terrain is it? What do you guys recommend? Like that type of stuff, I think, is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point. I mean, like, where you ride most is the bike that you should get. I mean, I think people get caught up on the idea, well, what if I go to Unbound, or what if I go to wherever? And I mean, okay, what if you do that? You'll make your bike work, like, but 90% of your riding is done, on your home roads. So no, I think that's good advice. So people are so caught up on the nuances of gravel tech right now. Just get a bike that you are going to go ride that fits you well. So looks like we got another one. Chase, thanks for joining the chat, man. So we talked a little bit about your gravel nats play out in the field. Chase, I think, got out there in that breakaway out front a little bit. But maybe we talk about the second one. What are your thoughts about Schwamigan and nats being on the same dates? Like, do you think that helps the gravel scene here and off-road scene in the U.S., or what are your thoughts?
It's actually the first time I've heard of that, so that is interesting. I did not know that. I think it's the type of thing that, for me and my bid to try to go and win it again, that probably helps my chances of trying to go back and win. So selfishly, it's not that big of a concern for me. But when I remove my biased hat that I'm wearing currently and sort of remove myself from the calculation or from the conversation, I think, yeah, it's probably not pushing forward the sport necessarily, because I do think the best races, the best stories come from those races where the top names are there. And when you have more and more top guys and gals there at those races and the level is the highest, I think that's where those results then hold the most weight. Like I think I saw firsthand being able to go and win that race last year, but also being able to win it in a field that was full of all the big names, and being able to beat a guy like Keegan, who everybody sees as kind of the dominant main rider. That validates that result a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see how the field looks with that in mind. I think it'll make it a little bit tricky for some people, and they'll have to make some hard decisions for sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because the national title, I mean, Schwamigan's going to be there, but the national title with the guys you're racing with, that group right now, I mean, you guys probably have like at most like 5 years of all racing, like the current field together before that whole. So I feel like that's a toss-off. That's a tough one there. But if you're not in the Grand Prix, so that's not a big deal.
I think it's like, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on this too. I mean, you go back to your experience of racing, UCI gravel in Europe, and there are, if I'm not, I don't know how many. I don't think are there any UCI gravel races here in the States?
There's a few, but they're definitely not. They're not as publicized and also attended like the ones in
Yeah.
Europe. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
ones in Europe are massive and have thousands of people. So this year, I think Mammoth Tough, which just happened recently, was a UCI race. That looked like a really awesome day. And then there's one in Arkansas. I did that one last year, kind of in Fayetteville area. Highland
Yes, heard
travel.
about that.
And then there's maybe one other one. There was one I did last year. I made a big push to do a bunch of them. I did another one in Canada that was really cool. But yeah, they haven't quite picked up the same way that they have in Europe. I don't think.
Yeah. And that's my concern is like I want to see both US gravel grow in its own right, you know, and have its own personality and its own culture. But at the same time, I also want to see, you know, I want to see Europe acknowledge, I want to see the UCI acknowledge that what we have going on over here, and to see Schwamigan and Lifetime Grand Prix, the one great force in US gravel, and then, you know, a UCI race like where you would hope that, like you said, all the same competition is coming there. It just seems like there's a huge disconnect between those two entities right now, and I don't know how much willingness there is to talk about that kind of stuff, but it's frustrating to me because, yeah, I mean, there will be an asterisk by whoever the national champion is next year if it truly is on the same weekend as Schwamigan. Like, no disrespect, but the Lifetime Grand Prix athletes are going to go race there, I would guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also the way that's set up, that series is such that you don't really have many drop races that you can afford to.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, are you thinking about applying, or are you have any interest in applying for Lifetime next year?
No, I don't think so. I think I really enjoyed how I approached this year, and that the calendar that I had this year just felt like it really suited me, and I don't really see much need to change my calendar drastically. I really liked what I did this year.
Sweet.
Yeah. So what's up? So you ride René Hurst. What's your favorite tire in that family?
That's a tough one because there's so many awesome ones in the lineup, but I think my go-to and kind of my all-around favorite has to be the Snoqualmie Pass, the 44 mil.
I knew you were gonna say that.
That's kind of my go-to. Like when I know it's a good race for me when I can race that tire. That just means it's screaming fast and it's gonna have a high average speed, and those are the races I love the most.
Is that the one you won Steamboat on, or is that what you ran?
I think it's Steamboat. I was on the 38, the Barlow Pass, so same tire, just one size smaller, one size narrower. Yeah. But nationals last year, I was on the Snoqualmie Pass.
So with everything, you know, people going to larger and larger volume tires, I see that you're not afraid to go to a smaller tire. Do you pick a tire based on like, all right, I can ride this semi-slick or slick 80% comfortably, and then like we just figure out the 20% as that comes along? Or
yeah, I think it depends a lot on the course, but I definitely I do feel like I've had the biggest wins that I've had have been when I more kind of lean more into my strengths than my weaknesses, and you can always look at that in two different ways. You can look at it as taking a setup that masks your weaknesses, or one that kind of plays to your strengths. And I've definitely had the best success when I've played to my strengths. Nationals last year, I was definitely on the back foot a number of times with the slicks. I mean, most of the field that year was on mountain bike tires, so being on 44 millimeter slicks, I definitely was at a disadvantage in certain sections of the course, but I had recon the course enough, and it was the same course as the year before, and I just knew that if I could get through those really sandy sections and the kind of loose sections, I would still have so much time afterwards where I could catch back up. So I could still afford to like lose a little bit of ground, maybe open up a gap, but I knew that I was going to be strong enough to keep coming back if I had to. And so that's kind of how I played it. And then I knew that in the end, if it came down to a sort of a group finish like it did, I would have undoubtedly the upper hand.
Yeah, man, that's interesting because, like, you know, of all riders to move more towards optimal tires for the situation as opposed to optimal tires for the entire race. Like I would honestly think that you would maybe fall in the latter category. And I only say that really because the aerodynamics of a skinnier tire are obviously better. However, you're in a pack, a gravel pack, nonetheless, more often than not. And my big concern would be you being a heavier, bigger rider blowing a rim to shreds, because I've ridden in those packs a few times and it's pothole after pothole. No one's calling anything out. Like, you must either be an amazing bike handler or, you know, those Renee Hurst really can absorb the bumps. Like, is that ever a consideration for you being a bigger rider? I mean, that's scary to me.
Yeah, definitely. Like at certain races, like, you know, Big Sugar, or Unbound, some of these ones where there's a lot of really rough terrain and we're going at a really high speed in the group, there it'll definitely be a different setup, like more kind of 50 mil inserts, extra sealant, kind of pulling out all of those tricks. But yeah, I've been very happy. Like Renee Hurst, they have 4 different casings, so depending on the terrain, I'll kind of play with the casing too. And so
Sure.
those like Unbound Big Sugar races, I'll definitely be on the Endurance Plus casing with some inserts and that kind of stuff. Just to, yeah, because we're hitting sharp rocks, but the reason that we have punctures is really because we're sitting on somebody's wheel and
Right.
you're just riding blind to these big rocks.
Yeah, that's the most terrifying thing I can possibly imagine, is being on the pointy end of a race, just with a pack around you and having no idea where. Hoping the riders around you know what they're doing. But Rhea, look at you.
So that guy behind the national champion is yours truly. Okay, so that's the guy right there riding. Brenan was blowing my legs off here, man. That is insane. That was a good race out there. That's Heiko this year. Brenan came through, caught up, and you were like you dropped me in like 2 seconds. But it was fun riding with you for a bit there and seeing, like, you know, what fast actually looks like.
Yeah, that was a highlight for me too. That was super cool, and it's always fun to see familiar faces out on the course. And I do think that's one of the fun things about gravel racing. We're all out there having a different experience, or we're in different fields or different races. Like, the sort of racing story for the day is maybe different, but at the end of the day, we're all riding the same course.
Yeah,
out there in the same heat. And I think that's one of the really fun, cool things about gravel racing.
Well, let's do some rapid fire. Or unless you got one more. I was going to do some rapid fire questions. Just
if you guys are watching, please. You guys are watching. Please send us some questions if you have any questions. I do have a question for you, Brenan. Now,
go for it.
You ride Garmin GPS, right? Head unit.
Mm-hmm.
What fields do you look at? Do you use it? Do you rely on it? Or you just kind of like count on the attacks in the movement in the race to make it work, or how does that work?
Definitely a mix, but I look at it a lot. I would say I rely on that device pretty heavily in the race. The fields that I'm looking at the most would probably be like the map, my power, sometimes some of the elevation numbers, and like the VAM and how fast we're climbing, depending on the type of terrain. But I think the map and the time and speed and kind of like distance remaining, those are the things that I look at the most. I also really like that climb profile feature, especially when it's a course that I haven't ridden before or raced before, or when you're really on the limit and you're looking at that climb pro, trying to figure out how much longer you have to suffer before you get into the descent. I've certainly been in that position a couple of times too.
Okay, so I'm glad to know that even a fast guy like you thinks about, like, when is this freaking climb gonna be over? Because that's me on climb 1, you know, and then I have like 20 more. I don't imagine that's the same for you, but that's good to know.
I thought it's interesting. So you say you keep the VAM on there, and so that's, if I'm not wrong, it's vertical ascent meters, right? And that's you're looking at total ascent. Or are you looking at like your VAM rate, like how fast you're climbing?
How fast? I look at that probably more in training. Like if I'm training in a really mountainous area, preparing for a race like Leadville or Crusher and the Tusher or something where you know that the big feature is just going to be how quickly you can climb. But sometimes I'll take a peek at it. I have it on my Climb Pro screen just to sometimes reference, like, man, this feels really hard right now. And then you look at that and you see like you're going 1700 BAM or something.
Yeah.
Makes sense why it's hard. We're going uphill pretty quick right now.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's almost like you got your wattage up, and that would be the true, you know what your numbers that you could push, but then you see the VAM. I feel like that could either be a shut up legs moment or a all right, I really am pushing this much power, like almost like a second way to convince yourself that you can hang on a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, super cool. So I was going to hit a couple just more fun rapid fire questions. So if you're cool with that, Aria. So
yeah, absolutely.
I love, especially when I talk to pros, like what's your best day on the bike? Like, what is that day that you had that you're just like that? Was it winning nationals, or maybe it was just a training ride, or maybe it was a group ride? Like, what's the best day you've ever had on a bike?
Hard to pick one specific day, but definitely one that stands out was I did this hour of power test a couple years ago in the winter, and it was pouring rain, kind of a gnarly winter day here in Northern California. And it was such a simple task of just like go out and see how many watts I could ride for an hour. Made a really good track, like good course for it. Didn't have any traffic interruptions or stoplights or anything, and just got to go out and hammer for an hour. That was super fun, and I felt really good. I fueled well, and that was a fun day.
And that tells so much about you.
What was the power? Did you say it? Sorry, did I miss it?
I think 485.
Oh my gosh,
that's insane.
Yeah, you must be running a Cork power meter. I heard they read high. So.
Oh man, SRM.
Pretty
accurate.
Oh, so okay. So to that same token, then, what's the worst day you've ever had on a bike?
Really, right up until the final 2K. Honestly, nationals last year was a pretty rough day. It wasn't the worst day I'd ever had, but I had quite a bit of time off the bike going into that race. I had COVID in the month going into it, so I definitely had to work for that one. I was really suffering, and never really had a moment throughout the race where I felt good, kind of by any normal standard. But just knew it was a good course for me, kept my head down, and just sort of suffered through it, and knew that the final was going to play to my strengths and my setup, and if I could just get there, that, you know, who knows what would happen. So just sort of kept plugging away, and glad that I did, but it was certainly a tough one out there that day.
Yeah, I was full, because I'd send you a message, before you went out there, and I knew, you'd had COVID, and then the next thing, obviously I talked to you because you're racing. The next thing, I saw on Instagram, you crossing the finish, like what the hell, it was super, it was amazing. I was super happy for you.
What was the first thought that crossed your mind when you crossed the finish line as national champion?
I honestly couldn't really believe it based on the month that I had. And it was a kind of an emotional moment too, because my photographer and good friend, Jim Merethy, was there at the finish line taking the photo. And he was the first person I saw crossing the finish line. And we both just locked eyes and had this moment of like, what? We both just couldn't believe it, because he was on the inside. I mean, he knew the month that I had leading into it. He knew where I was at and what I was kind of dealing with getting there, and so it was certainly a special moment for both of us last year.
Sure.
It was a bit of a roller coaster and more downs than ups. So it was, and we shared a lot of those downs together. So it was cool to come across that finish line and be able to share that really big highlight with him.
Super cool.
Next question's up there for Ivan. Is asking you what country you're riding the most.
Definitely Switzerland. I've done a lot of riding in Switzerland, and Scott, they're a Swiss company, so I got to go time over there. This summer was there for most of July. Have a couple really good friends over there too, and that terrain there in the Alps, it's just incredible. The high mountain roads, the gravel's beautiful, the rivers, the lakes, all of it. It's just, I've seen some incredible stuff. Some special rides out there.
Super cool. What I guess Brandon. So if you go out on a training ride, I'm notorious for going on a training ride with like food, but no equipment or anything like that. Like I should have, like no flat kit, no anything. I just hope that my friends do. But what is the one piece of equipment that you will never go on a ride without?
My Garmin radar. I absolutely love that thing. I take it on pretty much every ride. I've come to really trust it and love it, and I have a mount for it on every one of my bikes. It's either on my bike, on the charger. It's in constant rotation. It's always on the bike, and I don't really go anywhere without it.
Dude, best answer ever. I totally agree. It's the one.
I agree.
It's the best piece of equipment that in bike tech right now because I mean it's it's I recommend it to everyone. If it's not the Garmin one, get the Trek one, or I think Wahoo might have one too now. So, but it's totally agree with you. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think if anybody have any more questions, otherwise we're gonna shut it down. Brennan's gotta go and relax.
Yeah.
Did you do some training today? How was your day?
I did, yeah. I had a nice little easy spin. Gonna go eat some dinner, but nothing crazy today. Just a little bit of a cruise, kind of a drizzly day. Starting to feel like the beginning of fall, but it was nice to get out. And I love it. It's nice being home right now for this little block of time. I've been traveling so much that it's always a pleasure to come home and just get some time.
Now, I was thinking about this the other day. When I come down to visit you, we ride. Are you ready to ride like the slowest you've ever ridden? Because I was like, Brandon's going to be like, what the hell? Like, I didn't know people were going to ride this slow.
We'll get you an e-bike.
You're going to have to find some courses, some routes that don't have a lot of climbs and stuff. So, maybe we'll do one or two climbs here and there or something. But
I'd say bring your climbing legs for sure. We can go whatever speed you want, but I'm prepared to climb because there's not a whole lot.
You're going to be doing a lot of waiting.
There's a lot of climbing.
Nice. Well, Brenan, tell us two things. What does the remainder of your race calendar look like for this year? What races are you going to be at? And then also tell the audience where they can follow you. I think people definitely want to keep a close eye on you now that you've been on.
Yeah, we'll get up to Big Sugar. There's a chance actually that I might be done with racing for this season. I'm still trying to decide, but definitely pretty tired after the long year. So there's a chance I might just call it after nationals. But I will be at Big Sugar either way. Wouldn't miss that one. The whole festival and everything out there is always a good time. And for those looking to follow along, I'm on Instagram. It's my first name dot last name, so Brenan.Wertz on Instagram.
Cool. Not hard to find a bunch of American flag jerseys on there. So
there we go.
Two ends.
Period. Let me edit that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Brenan, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Always a privilege to have someone who's inside the pointy end of so many of these races that we watch. And like you said, it's always gravel's such a cool sport. I get to go ride the same course that you do at a much slower pace. But to bring it all home and then have you here is super cool. So thank you for your time. Wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season and on into 2026. And maybe we'll get you on here again then after you bring home the national championship next year, maybe. So,
yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's always fun to bump into each other out there at the races, and look forward to hopefully seeing more of you guys out at the races next year.
Yeah, I'll keep you on your toes. Don't worry. I'll see you. I'm sure I'll see you again.
Aria, shout out our sponsors really quickly, and then we'll sign this thing off.
Yeah, we want to thank Reland for keeping the lights on for the best nutrition, post-ride nutrition. Please check out Reland.com. We'll have the link in the description below, show notes, and olive-live.com. For that high phenolic olive oil that's really good for inflammation. Brandon, we'll probably send you. We'll talk to Pete. We'll send you a bottle, and you can let us know how you like it. And Taco as well as Wild Bikes. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.
See you later.
Thank you.